Hello.
Hi.
Our guest needs no introduction, but we're still going to give him one anyway. He's not just a good guitar player. One might say he's a very, dare I say, very good guitar player. He's a member of both Snarky Puppy and the Fearless Flyers, has created 7 solo releases. He's shared the stage with the likes of Tori Kelly, Erykah Badu, and the late David Crosby. He's been awarded 5 Grammy Awards with his work with Snarky Puppy and nominated for a Grammy for his work on his solo record, Deep the Baritone Sessions Volume 2. He's known for playing jazz, fusion, R&B, gospel, funk, rock, and pop. And if the pay is good, he'd probably be willing to do polka and klezmer. By the time you see this interview, he will have recorded 2 nights at the Iridium Jazz Club in New York City to make his upcoming live record. Today, we have him here to discuss his collaboration with Jackson Audio on their latest guitar pedal, the New Wave. To call this a chorus pedal is an understatement, as you'll soon find out from its many options and features. Please welcome to our carpeted stage, Mr. Mark Lettieri.
Thanks, Ben.
How's it going, man?
Quite an introduction, dude.
Yeah, I try. Try for our best guests.
Yeah, all right. Well, I like your carpet.
Thank you very much.
A lot of red. We got the red happening.
Yeah, it's a good aesthetic. I wish I could say I picked out the carpet, but I can't take the credit.
That's a good one.
But thank you for being here, first of all.
My pleasure.
And I'm psyched to talk about this pedal because I had a chance to play with it. It sounds awesome.
It's a fun one.
And like I said, it really, you could say it's a chorus pedal, but it does a lot of chorus and peripherally chorusy things.
Right.
So first, let's get to the very basic.
Cool.
How'd you get involved with Jackson Audio?
Jackson is a Texas-based company,
Okay.
and I'm a Texas-based musician. And we linked up. It's been quite a few years, I think, since we first met. They made amps for a while, and that's
Right.
when I first heard about them because their amps were in a lot of the churches around town. And so I was like, hey, these are cool amps, you know. Oh, they're Texas guys. Okay. And so, but then we hooked up when they had sort of pivoted into making pedals. And I came in to help them do just some YouTube demos for a wide variety of stuff that they had released.
This is, we're talking years ago?
Well, maybe 3, 4 years, 5 years ago,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah, it's probably 2018 or something. But I found out, I learned about their amps maybe 2014 or something, I don't know, a while ago. It was great pedals, I liked what they were doing, and I started using their Blossom compressor pedal.
So that's the first one you got.
Yeah, which
accustomed
is
to.
interesting because I don't use compressor pedals, like hardly at all.
Okay.
But I really liked this one, how it responded with my baritone guitar. So what I would do is I'd put it on the board and use it as like a volume control to like variate, or not variate, but equalize the volume and output between like a regular guitar and a baritone.
Right, because it's kind of like a boost. You can't, it's hard to call it a boost.
Well, I would turn it on when I use the baritone because baritone's a lot louder than a regular guitar.
Right.
And so I would get just the right EQ, just a little bit of compression to kind of give it that oomph for not having as much volume as I was used to, and it was kind of a nice little seamless part of my rig. So, but yeah, they make a bunch of great stuff, and now we have this.
So you start playing some Jackson Audio. Years go by. When does the conversation happen where you want to make a pedal with them? Let alone it's a chorus pedal. That
Right.
You're just like, hey guys, let's make a pedal together.
Right. Well, I remember we had lunch at a ramen restaurant.
That's where all the best
in
ideas
Fort
come
Worth.
from.
Yeah, and we just sort of were spitballing stuff, and we kind of had an idea of doing a series of pedals, I think, for a second, and the chorus was the first one that we thought about, because it was like, what's something that I haven't done yet, or because I've done overdrives and stuff like that.
Sure. So you get a lot of different effects out of this pedal. You can get the mono, very simple chorus right through one amp, or if you want to get wild, you can do the stereo thing with everything from 80s and beyond. So with all the options of different sine waves and different types of chorus, what are the sounds and presets you personally like to do on your records and or live performances?
Well, lately what I've been getting into is setting it. I made a preset for the vibrato setting. Then, if I tap the ramp button, it starts to speed up.
And we'll do it the same if you,
Yeah,
so if
now-
you strum the chord and then you press it.
It'll slow down.
See, that's a nice way to end a song too. That's great for transitions.
So I love that because I might be playing like a figure. And maybe want to, when it gets fast, start soloing and then slow it down when I want to go back to playing chords and stuff like that. So
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't have to turn down, I don't have to bend down and turn a knob and speed something up. I just tap it, and you can save those parameters, how fast, how slow you want, and then when you hit this ramp switch,
it's also nice to not have to deal with an expression pedal. So you're not doing that kind of like skipping around the pedal board thing. You just go tap and it does it for you. That's a really nice feature, especially like I was saying for transition. Musically, it's nice to, even if you strum the chord and it goes and slows down or speeds up.
So that's as fast as it is for now. So it's, in a sense, almost like you're controlling the spinning of a speaker.
Right.
Like a Leslie speaker or something like that.
Yeah, and you can get some Leslie-ish stuff
Kind
out
of,
this.
yeah. It's not, I wouldn't say it's all the way that, but that's okay. That was sort of the point.
Right. It's
to be
Leslie.
something different, yeah.
Lester, if you will.
Lester. There you go.
Not quite Leslie.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's, I mean, that sounds gorgeous. And what setting was that? It was 70s, 80s?
This is vibrato.
So that's just straight up vibrato.
Yeah. Let me get out of ramp mode here and I'll just kind of, but yeah, I mean, and you can change, it's got these waveform selectors, which will totally change
Right, you
all
get
sorts of
triangle,
stuff.
I can't see it from here, but it's triangle,
Yeah.
square, you got two Selena waves.
Right, which are like a triplet beat, and they took that from an ARP synthesizer
Oh, that's
machine or
cool.
something like that, yeah. There's a lot in here, I mean, but it's one of those pedals where you can turn it on, plug it in, set everything at noon, great.
Right.
And you don't even have to get weird if you don't want to, which is kind of what I like to do. I like to just, does it work? Yes, cool. Do the gig, do the session, and then when I got some spare time, get weird, get the presets together, you know.
And it's nice and pedal board friendly for having all the different choruses. Like, I feel like if you're getting a modulation effect that's multi-effect, they're typically enormous. Like, they're at least a box.
True, yeah, it's not.
So
it's
to
not
have it in standard pedal format with not a lot, it's also very easy to use. A lot of the ones that say, oh, we have at least 7 will have a very small LED panel and 72 knobs, and it's impossible to use.
Yeah.
Which dissuades people, and we want people who want to get into an effect like this but explore all the possibilities of an effect.
Right.
This is the way to go, in my opinion, at least one of the ways to go.
Sure.
'Cause it's a great pedal. I had a lot of fun the other night, much to my wife's chagrin because I was playing a little too late. But it's a fun pedal.
Yeah.
And like I said, you got the dry wet waveforms you can choose from the different types of choruses.
There's a tone knob too, which is actually pretty helpful.
Right, and that makes it a little darker or brighter,
yeah.
which is not a very common thing as far as most chorus pedals to have that kind of EQ in it. Most of them is just, here's the effect, whatever your guitar and amp are doing, that's where the EQ is. So you can do some really interesting stuff, and it'll totally change your guitar signal, not even just from the modulation aspect of things,
Right.
but also just the actual tone of the instrument,
Right.
which is a nice benefit. So it's almost like if you have an EQ pedal, you could use it, but you don't need an EQ pedal anymore, technically.
Disliked about a lot of the chorus pedals that I'd used in the past is either your tone got darker or your tone got brighter.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want that.
Or if it happens, heaven forbid, you have the option to tweak it right on there.
Right. So this one, yeah, exactly. If you want it to be darker, you can make it darker, or vice versa. So.
And what's great that I saw, and you were performing it in different demos, is that I don't think there is a single song featuring chorus you can't copy exactly.
Probably.
Unfortunately, I wish we could play them, but we would get copyright
Well,
strikes.
I'm also terrible at remembering how actual parts of songs go. So
Well, I mean, like even that chord from "Walking on the Moon," or well, don't play it exactly.
I think I might know that one.
I wish we could. I wish we could. But then there's like "This Charming Man" has a very distinct chorus, and you have love song or really any Cure song.
Right.
And they're all different choruses, whether the depth is larger or smaller or that wave format, or in
Right.
some songs, like Journey probably has a ton of in stereo. So the fact that you can probably achieve all of this with one pedal, I'm very curious if people are going to make like how to get
Cool if
that
they did.
sound. You could probably do with this pedal.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to know, and this is just me because I'm a fan of outrun synthwave stuff. That's not what I think of when I think of Mark Lettieri or
Yeah.
any of your projects. You're very into the funk, you're very into
Sure.
that kind of sound. Though I would be very curious if a synthwave track/record from you. That's side
I've
note.
played on some synthwave sessions before.
Then I didn't do
little
my
bit.
research enough. I
No,
gotta
that
check
well,
that out.
I mean, I'll send it to you.
Please, please. So was it you or Jackson that came up with the graphic aesthetic of that kind of like outrun style?
Man, this was Jackson's idea. They came with the artwork, and which is interesting because I'm always hands-on about that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But they just kind of came like, "Hey, we got a design," and I was like, "Oh, do you?" You know, like I was ready to just throw it in the trash.
I'm curious, what did you expect initially? What did you think was going to be that artwork for this, for the new wave?
I didn't think about it actually. I thought it might be blue because for some reason all chorus pedals are blue, but it's a nice shade of blue. I was like, "Oh, that's great! Like, great name, great art. This is cool." Because I do love. I mean, yeah, I love the 80s. I love all that various cultural zeitgeists of the 80s and all that kind of stuff, and the music, of course. And so it just kind of was serendipitous in that regard that I didn't have anything to do with the artwork, and they sent it to me, and I really liked it.
So from what I gather, working with Jackson is a breeze as far as developing anything, because in some cases they do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you just have to go,
Well, I'm definitely
yes.
not a coder, you know, or any kind of programmer or analog tweaker in that regard. So we did spend several hours over at Brad's house tweaking stuff, and I didn't know what half that stuff is.
I
just was
don't
like,
either.
This sounds good. That doesn't. Let's do the thing that sounds good, and they would, solder and this.
But it's nice that they know they can translate what you're saying
Sure.
to what you want.
Right. Yeah. Definitely want that.
Curious, since we were talking about chorus and related to this, what were some of the songs, whether the ones I mentioned previously or that you just love, that you're like, you know what, I got to see if I can get that out of this pedal?
I haven't really tried that much. I love all the classic Police tones and a lot of the stereo chorus.
Prince, maybe.
Of course, yeah, Prince. But for me, when I get a pedal, I immediately think, what can I do to make my music cool with this? Whether or not it does the sounds of a favorite artist or not really my focus, but if it does sort of remind me of that, then that's a good thing too. But we had a lot of fun doing the original demo for this where I brought my band in and I grabbed just a bunch of different inspiring tones and kind of came up with these little jams that we played.
Which I've seen a lot of demo videos for guitar pedals. It's half of my job. I kind of have to keep in the know. And some are like, okay, that's
Right.
just like every others. Those were some fun demos.
Oh, thanks. Well, it's always good to have a band in there
Right.
when you're demoing gear, if you can.
It's nice to have a jam that just happens to promote a pedal, and not a pedal that just happens to have a jam. But those were fun, and you get the essence of the pedal in that,
Right.
which is great.
Right.
So speaking of pedals, we're talking about chorus.
Yeah.
Let's get a little guitar nerdy, not super nerdy, enough that we can both speak the same language. You have this on your board. Where is it going in the pedal order?
Okay.
So everyone has they think the right answer, but what's your right answer?
It's after all my drives and fuzzes and boosts. It's right before my volume pedal, and then after the volume pedal is like delays and reverbs.
Okay.
So
And no effects loop stuff. You're just
No,
right into
I
the
run
amp.
everything straight into clean amps.
Okay. See, I do this for the fans because everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, I saw Mark live, and that's clearly the sound you get out of an effects loop." It's like, there's no right answer with tone. The right answer is what you like.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what
I've
learned.
always that's been the gear that's been accessible to me and made sense to me, and how to set up. And a big part of I get asked this question often is like, why don't you use effects loops or this, that, and the other? And so much of my time on the road is spent playing backline amps.
Sure.
And so I need something simple that I can plug into that is consistent, and I'll build the rest of my tone with pedals.
Right, I never even thought about
so if I can't have a, triple channel 5 effects loop thing in every country that I'm going to with the Mark Lettieri group, where we throw all our stuff on a train and carry our own gear and all these kinds of things.
So you do it more for simplicity, and it's like the rule of thumb: don't fix what ain't broke.
Right. And even on a tour that has a little bit more flexibility in terms of what gear we can bring, like Snarky Puppy, for example, where we have a trailer where we can put stuff. I'm so used to doing this that I don't change it. Because it works. Yeah, it's always kind of worked for me, doing it the way I do it.
Let's get into you as a person, the mind, the heart, the fingers of Mark Lettieri. What makes you as a guitar player? These are some personal questions I'm curious about. Like, who have you worked with? A lot of people have been featured on your records. Is there anyone that stands out where you were getting giddy that they were in the room?
Yeah. Well, we did those 2 family dinner records with Snarky Puppy where we had loads of guest singers and instrumentalists. I remember the day that David Crosby and Charlie Hunter both showed up.
And they're both monsters in their own right.
I mean, just the most gifted, amazing people, just all around, musically and otherwise.
Charlie Hunter, to me, is such an underrated musician in the sense that everybody who knows him understands why he's brilliant. Yeah. Like, I remember first hearing about him through, like, John Mayer back in the day.
Yeah.
And then I saw him, like, oh, that's ridiculous what he's doing.
He should be on the cover of every guitar magazine in the world.
And hopefully, if the right person's watching this interview, that will change.
Yeah.
But continue, please.
But anyway, so I had been a fan of Charlie since high school, because he was a Bay Area guy, and we heard about him back in the late 90s, early 2000s or something, and me and my friends were just blown away by that. And of course, David Crosby's music has been in my house since forever because my dad is a huge Byrds fan.
See, I thought you were going to say Crosby, Stills, Nash.
Well,
and
them too,
Young.
but really it was the Byrds in our house. We show up to the studio in New Orleans, and Charlie is in one room playing all this Charlie Hunter stuff, playing a bunch of the stuff that he put together on the
4
D'Angelo
parts in one person.
records. Yeah, so he's playing all these D'Angelo things and his things, and then I go to the other room and David Crosby is like showing people all his different tunings, and I lost it. I broke down. Like there was a lot of stuff going on in my life leading up to that week.
Okay.
And so I was like, what am I? And I kind of I got a little emotional here and
it all
hugged
connects.
our keyboard player for a minute. I'm like, this is just a lot, man.
Well, think about it. You started off just as a gigging guitar player, thinking, hey, if I hit the road, that's cool. And then one day you're in a studio, a packed studio, because if anyone's watched the videos from those sessions, it's a packed room of people.
Right.
And here's David Crosby, someone you've been listening to as a kid, thinking, oh, it'd be cool to meet him, not realizing you'd be cutting a track with David Crosby.
Right.
Nothing against Charlie. It's awesome that he's there too, but someone who you grew up and appreciated in a huge, immense way. And there are very rare, surreal moments like that. And so that's very cool you had that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, and both of them were so giving. I think that's what was really special is, David wanted to show us these tunings he was working on. Charlie wanted me to play his guitar, I didn't sound very good on it, but, I'm still great friends with Charlie. I remained friends with Cros up until he passed, so.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I mean, that was really special. Very, very special.
That's very cool. Speaking of jamming, since you have luckily played with a lot of people and cut tracks with people, who is someone in your sights you hope to record with, either just they sit in on your album or you're just happy to do something with them?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a guitar player. It could just be a musician you aspire to work with.
Gosh. There's a lot of people that I would love to work with, even though I have no idea how I would work.
I always throw one at me.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be great to play with Jackson Browne.
You make that like I thought you were gonna be like, oh, I'd like to cut a track with Slayer.
Well,
no,
but actually the other I'd love to work. He might even see this. I'd love to do something with Tosin Abasi.
That dude came out of nowhere and took us all by storm. I thought he's one of those guys like a Van Halen where you're like, oh, we've done everything that can be done on guitar. It's done. Where we can pack up and go home. And he comes out, he's like, nope, you haven't seen what my hands can do.
He's on a whole other approach. It's fantastic.
But yeah, I could totally see you guys doing something.
That might happen. I should call him.
You hearing that, Tosin? I'm going to give you a call later.
He's probably like...
But he's I mean, you have to remember, he also worked with Generation X. It's him with
Sure.
Zach Wilde and Nuno.
Well, I told him we did a clinic last summer at the Andy Wood Woodshed Camp, which is
right.
a lovely camp. Everyone should come check it out this year. But I was like, man, I'll just write a track where I'm just riffing on the baritone. You just do whatever you want. So maybe we'll just do that.
There you go. It doesn't
be
even
cool.
have to be progressive metal or anything. He's
Oh, yeah.
capable of much
I
more
know.
than that.
That'd be fun. I'd always Bernard Purdy I'm a huge Bernard Purdy drum.
The best.
Yeah, I'd love to just groove with him for a while.
And that makes sense because you're a huge Steely Dan fan.
I love Steely Dan.
So
yeah.
even if you guys, like I had the privilege of seeing, and this actually kind of relates to the next thing, I saw Wolfpack live at Summer Stage in Central Park, and Bernard Purdy just shows up and
Yeah.
they do Peg on stage.
Oh, that's great.
I was like, and I'm a huge Steely Dan fan, and I'm grateful to have seen Steely Dan, but to see Wolfpack cover it perfectly and Bernard
Nice.
doing his thing on the drums, the only way it could have been better is Michael McDonald sat in.
Right on.
But
He'd be a guy I'd like to work with too, actually.
oh,
Nice that you mentioned.
yeah, Bernard Purdy is just an absolutely fantastic drummer. So I totally see you guys doing a Steely Dan-esque type thing.
We could just play a blues.
Or that. You're just basically saying, I'd be happy to do anything. Play Happy
Yeah.
Birthday or something.
Sure. I would love to play with anyone who's ever been on a record that I bought and enjoyed. You know what I mean? And that's
Solid
the
answer.
broadest answer you could find. But, you know, like last summer I got to jam with Greg Bissonette. Lovely.
Hell
It was
yeah.
awesome. It was just me and him. And I grew up listening to Greg with, you know, Satriani and the David Lee Roth records and all the other stuff that he had done. And I met him at this camp, or no, it wasn't a camp, it was a guitar show in Tacoma. And he goes, Mark, we got a jam. And I was like, you know who I am? Like, all right, you know,
That's-
my clinic's at 3 or whatever. And so he came and we just rocked for a while. And it was awesome. He was
That's
the
too
sweetest dude.
cool.
So that was a nice little check off the list there.
So I brought up Wolfpack unintentionally, but it's perfect for my next question, which is obviously you guys and Wolfpack have a lot of similarities as far as what you sonically try to do. But at some point, while you both were doing your own thing, Snarky Puppy and Wolfpack, Fearless Flyers comes out of
Sure.
nowhere. So for me personally, because I love that project as well, how did that even come to be? Was it just you guys were hanging out and you're like, this could be fun? Or was it an accident on purpose?
I wouldn't say it was an accident, but we weren't hanging out. I didn't actually really know any of the guys except Joe. I had played with Joe one time on a gig, and that was the first time we'd ever met. And then that was years prior to the Flyers coming together. I got an email from Corey Wong, basically
Okay.
just saying like, "Hey, this is Corey with Wolfpack. We're trying to start a new project." And it was a pretty vague email. Actually, it said me on guitar, Joe Dart on bass, Nate Smith on drums, hopefully you on baritone guitar. And I had to think about it for a while. You know, because I kind of hadn't really donned the outfit of baritone guitar guy yet. I wasn't really
Which I want to ask you some
sure
stuff
if I
about
was
that.
comfortable being the baritone guitar guy, right? And so it took me a minute, but I had a couple conversations with Corey, and he sort of calmed me down, I guess, and because I didn't know how are we writing these songs, who's producing. Like, I like having direction. With Snarky Puppy, there's generally a fair amount of direction, even though it is chaotic at times too.
Sure.
But so anyway, it became a really, really fun, special, awesome little group that we have now, and we've done quite a few EPs and playing shows now, and yeah, it's just been a blast. So
Yeah, and those, if you haven't listened to that stuff, if you're either a Snarky Puppy or Wolfpack fan, or you just want to hear some really funky, in many cases, up-tempo type
very
stuff.
up-tempo. It's not, the tempos are not, no ballads.
And this is where, and one thing I learned, because I was jamming on it last night for fun, is if you want to get your chops down, this is the kind of stuff to try and figure out, because the fact that it's clean and you have to get
sure.
those notes out, like distortion, delay, reverb can hide all the mistakes.
Yeah.
But this is a very precise, quick thing.
Right.
And it's great. It's a lot of fun, because it's not terribly, I don't want to insult in anything. It's not that it's not difficult. It's not shreddy, like it's not that insane stuff,
Yeah.
but it's precise. It's a lot of, in some cases, pentatonic stuff.
Well, yeah, I think harmonically, there's nothing really crazy going on. We have some sort of gymnastics kind of licks, but
oh, totally.
the hard part about being, well, I shouldn't say the hard part, but the focus is the groove. It's the pocket. And I think people think, well, that's an easy riff. Cool, maybe it is, but
Do it in time in the pocket.
yeah, and make it feel right. And of course, we have the assistance of Nate Smith to help us, but still, it's got to sound and feel funky as a 4-piece.
And
I think
that's the beauty of funk, is that it seems simple, but having it that tight and precise.
It's one of the hardest genres to play right, because I think people think, oh, I know ninth chords, I can play funk. Like, well,
good luck.
So, yeah, it's funk is hard because it's what you don't play that is important,
Spacing.
So, and sometimes the flyer stuff can get a little busy, but it's busy on purpose.
But what's interesting is, and this was listening to some of the tracks, is it sounds busy, but if you take any part out, that part isn't busy. It's just someone's always has its own moment, even between beats.
Sure.
So like, even your baritone part might be just dun 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 dun, but Corey might be do dun 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 dun
Yeah,
kind of things.
It's definitely arranged with purpose.
So yeah, I mean, again, great project.
Thanks,
if you
man.
guys want something to listen to. So speaking of which, so you've done solo work, you've done Snarky Puppy, you've done Fearless Flyers. How does your songwriting, guitar playing approach differ between each, or is there a similar thread between it all?
Yeah. Composition for the Flyers is a pretty simple process, because they're relatively simple tunes, but I have a distinct role in what I need to accomplish there, and thankfully, working with another guitar player like Corey, he's obviously incredible, right? So I can just kind of trust him to do his thing. I know exactly what I can do to where we can both sound great together, because we are two very different sides of the same coin, so to speak.
Sure.
So it's a nice symbiotic relationship there. So it's actually pretty easy for me to formulate baritone guitar parts for that band. I think I just have to sort of be conscious of what Joe's doing, because I don't want to necessarily get into the range where I'm stepping on Joe. So my role in that band is almost like the keyboard player.
Okay.
If you think about it. If I am bringing tunes to that band, I just try to think like simple, direct, catchy, cool stuff for everyone to do, knowing that the framework of the band has kind of been designed around these kind of micro funk jams, right?
Right.
So I can't take it too far into Lettieri left field, or
Right.
Sometimes I might throw in a few things, but I know what the band is really about, and so I can just sort of put that helmet on and get to it. It's sort of similar with Snarky Puppy, but it's I have a giant palette to play with now, because I have
Can't even
horns
imagine
and
what
keyboards
arrangements are like.
and that's hard for me. I got real lucky with the last tune I wrote for the band that I was able to come up with something that worked, because I've written tunes for that band that didn't work, because
Right.
I was too in my head about parts and arranging and making sure everybody had something interesting to do, and I wasn't thinking about just writing a cool song. So when I write my own music, I kind of take all those elements in and just kind of do my own thing with it, because I guess I sort of am trying to develop my own voice as a composer, but at the same time bringing in all the influences from the other musicians that I work with, the other bands that I play in, and I've learned a lot about writing from being in both of those other ensembles, so it's been helpful.
In a way, it's like schizophrenia, because you have 3 different voices you're trying to do as one human being.
Yeah.
While still keeping the sanity intact.
Well, it's funny because some songs, like there was a song on Deep, the Baritone Sessions Volume 2 that I originally wrote for the Fearless Flyers. But at its core, it was a Mark Lettieri song, right? There are tunes that I've written towards Snarky Puppy, but then was like, you know what? This might just be a Mark Lettieri song. Yeah, I try to compartmentalize the songs for the different projects
And honestly,
that they need to go to.
that's kind of a nice thing to have, because some people are like, I'm only in one group, so every song I write has to fit this, and otherwise it gets tossed in the maybe later pile.
Right.
So,
I mean, the freedom of having my own project is I can do whatever I want. If it's a song that only fits with me, I can still put it out and I'll be happy with it. I think my focus really is developing my solo thing, and when it's time to write for the other bands, it's time to write for those other bands. But Most of the time I'm writing for myself, I think.
So I learned that live, which this was actually pretty surprising considering all the projects you've done, and especially with Snarky Puppy and the family dinner sessions, that you don't, not that you can't, but you don't read sheet music live. So for myself and other, that's not an insult.
I know, no, I get it.
It makes things a lot easier.
People freak out when they're like, there's no charts. So yeah, go ahead.
So that being said, because I could definitely use this information, what do you do mentally or any kind of pre-preparedness of some kind where it makes it so you know how to do changes? What chords? Is there a mental mnemonic device you have? How does that work so that you're not the guy who stops every take?
Right.
Basically.
Well, I think a lot of it for me, it just came from experience. In my late teens, early 20s, did a lot of gospel church work on Sundays.
So you got your practice in.
And so I got my practice in because we never had charts for any of that stuff. And a lot of it was pretty complicated. Even, I did a lot of gospel sessions too with no charts. And so I've just always had to learn stuff by ear. And I like it. I prefer doing that, actually. I mean, because you really learn the music. It's fine to have a piece of paper in front of you as a roadmap, but I oftentimes find myself sort of married to the chart, and they're like, I can't play this song without this chart, and it becomes kind of or a crutch rather. So, if it's a gig, you're going to be doing a lot, just memorize the music.
So basically what I'm getting is practice a lot.
Well, you always try to use your ear first, I think.
Yeah.
If you can,
It's funny because I remember this story about that Yo-Yo Ma was dependent on charts. He had to always read sheet music. And Bob McFerrin's like, hey, come on, let's get on stage and we'll improvise. He's like, no,
Yeah.
I only read stuff. Bobby's like, you know what, you're right, fine, no problem. Brings him out on stage, goes, oops, I forgot. And then gets Yo-Yo to basically play something on the fly. And it was a learning experience for him to realize that you don't, like you're saying, you can't be tied always to a chart because sometimes you lose the chart, sometimes something else happens. And so the ear training thing is so important, not that it's a replacement for learning charts and everything else,
right,
but it's another tool in your tool bag to make you a better musician.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
which has proven with you.
Well, and the goal, of course, with the Snarky Puppy stuff is by the time we hit record on a live record, ideally we should really be to have the music internalized.
Sure.
And so that's why we just do everything by ear, and it's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of late nights and early mornings, and there's no easy way to do it. It is painful. We all lose sleep. But the results are magical. So it's like, we know that when we have a record, these next 2 weeks are going to be Navy SEAL music boot camp,
Right.
And we just do it. I think there's some guys probably have like more regimented versions for how they split up parts, and I think we kind of all do. It's like, thankfully the nice thing about Snarky Puppy is generally I go into learning a tune kind of knowing what I should learn. I try to learn everything.
Okay.
Bass line, chords, melodies, because I don't really know what I'm going to be playing. But there is kind of a way to compartmentalize, like, okay, I'm just going to, or this hour, I'm just going to work on the melody. Or this hour, I'm just going to work on the harmony. This hour, I'm just going to work on the bass line or something like that. And I put this thing in Logic, and I just back and forth, with the loop feature, and just
in a way, it sounds like you guys are a wedding band that only plays originals. If that makes sense, the way you guys
I don't
practice.
think that makes sense.
It doesn't. If it doesn't
I
make
don't know.
sense,
Well,
I mean, in the sense like I hear when people are in wedding bands, they have to practice the same stuff. They have to, and then you say there are people that come in and out of the gig.
Yeah, sure.
And
fair.
so that's where, not that like you guys are a wedding band, but just the idea.
We've done weddings before. Yeah.
True. You were saying yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more the fact that you guys have a certain set of songs you do a certain way. That, like wedding bands, you don't have a chart in front of you. You have to have it memorized.
Right.
And should someone else have to play your parts, they need to know that exact situation as well. That was the only reason I was saying wedding as kidding. Originals.
No, you're right. And it's a tough gig to come in and out of it. And when we tour, we don't tour with 19 people, obviously. We tour with like 8 to 10, which is still a lot, but there's only one guitar player, for example. So when I jump on the tour, I'll be playing all the guitar parts as one person. You know, so you prioritize the ones that need to happen, but a lot of times those parts were played on the record by one of Bob or Chris, and they have very different sounds than I do, so I have to kind of interpret that. Yeah, it's a pretty daunting task, but you know,
But it seems worthwhile.
Oh, it's been the most fulfilling. Yeah, absolutely, no complaints.
It's funny, you mentioned Logic just as a DAW you use, but in doing my research, and I would have never even thought to consider this, but it seems that for those that use Logic and GarageBand, they may not realize they're using your guitar parts. In the sense, to clarify, you recorded guitar loops and guitar parts for Apple for these programs.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting thing to be asked to do. So how does that conversation with one of the biggest corporations in the world happen, where they say, Mark, you of all the guitar players, we want your skills to write stuff that millions of other people are going to use potentially in their own songs?
Well, yeah, it was pretty cool, and definitely a kind of a neat gig. Like, I always wanted to do something like that. And so yeah, I released a pack. They called them producer packs. They have a bunch of different, and some of the packs are drum sounds or keyboard sounds, or mine's really guitar specific. I met them quite a while ago. The process took a minute of like the first introduction to when we actually finished, but I think they may have, I don't know how they heard about me. I remember a big part of the conversation was like, yeah, like sometimes on Instagram you'll just do these guitar loops where you loop yourself. Something like that is, yeah, with a looper pedal, right. Something like that is really cool. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so, yeah, I wrote like 200 some odd of these little stems of groove-based guitar of all sort of varieties that people can splice and dice and tune and detune and add effects to and put in their tunes, And it was pretty awesome. I'd love to do it again if they want to do it again.
Yeah, this is where I think, like, we've been looking at the camera being like, hey, Tosin, hey, so-and-so.
Right.
I'm not sure anyone from Apple's looking at this.
Maybe.
Although, crazier things have happened. So, Apple, if you need more loops, your guy's still available.
I know a guy.
So, and this is a curious question, because I always wonder this in the world of people creating loop packs and stuff. Like how I learned that Lil Nas X's big hit was just a Trent Reznor loop.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So, have you heard any of your loops in the ether? Like, have you been just like listening to a commercial and be like, I played that guitar part in that?
I haven't, and I don't know if I would remember if it was me or not.
Fair enough.
Maybe. I every now and then people will send, tag me in an Instagram video of something that they're doing with one of my things.
That's
and
cool.
That's always really awesome to see. Specifically because a lot of people, sometimes people will feel the beat in a different place than where I recorded it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so that's always really neat to hear.
Right, where you would have had the one on the one, they did on the 2 or the 4.
Exactly, something like that. And so that's really cool to hear.
See, now I want to see like a Mark Lettieri loop pack contest where it's use only those.
Maybe Sam Ash should have a Mark Lettieri
Maybe.
loop pack contest.
We'll contact you, Apple, if you were interested in this contest.
Exactly.
But yeah, I know we got off the rails a little bit from the pedal, but
yes.
This is for those that have only heard a little bit of what he's playing, this really does so much more. It's truly a unique chorus pedal in the fact, like I said earlier, it does every chorus that has ever existed, arguably, because if it's a legal thing, no. Arguably, it can do almost every chorus pedal, and I can't even imagine if you had 2 of these on your board, what it would do.
We should talk about this sound. Do you hear the waveform? This is the user control mode.
That's weird.
Very weird.
This is like an indie guitar player's dream. Like all the Mac DeMarcos and Kurt Viles out there that want, or those that want to be them. Because it's not an unpleasant thing if done right.
Sounds like an old tape machine or something.
like that. Is that the square wave?
Pretty cool.
See, that's amazing in the sense, like, I was saying indie songs. That sounds like a indie song right off the radio that someone's about to sing on top of.
Oh.
And what's great is...
I'm with CSAC if you need to
there you go.
need my publishing.
So...
Oh, you can tap tempo here.
Right.
This is sick. This is great.
I just love that rhythmic possibility of a chorus.
Yeah, tap tempo.
Yeah, right. And the cool thing is we don't have this capability right here on the stage, but it also has MIDI, so you can get even weirder and more specific. So something like that rhythm can be programmed in MIDI if you're one of those people that, oh, I kicked the knob so I don't have it at that exact spot. Someone can go, okay, when we perform this song live with our drummer to a click track, I want it to be on this specific rhythm. And what's great is those presets also can all be programmed, so not only is it a button preset, you can go live and go, okay, we're going to do this song, click, all right, all of my chorus settings and everything are here, and you could even arguably do it where we're at the bridge, chorus changes like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we
man.
don't have that here, but I'm sure there's some guy watching this or person watching this who's going, I'm going to manipulate this and get weird with it.
That's the whole point. Cool.
So see if you can get a wide stereo chorus for those at home wearing headphones or with speakers. I'm very curious how wide it sounds.
Cool. Yeah, I've got it in rack mode here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like some people love ASMR or Enya. This is the kind of stuff I want to hear in a spot.
Is that like where it's just like a guy chewing on a cucumber for 40 minutes?
Yeah, but like
That's so crazy
this,
to me.
like hearing a lush chorus in stereo is my version of just.
Oh, okay.
I want to relax, hear that. Just
Maybe that
wash
could be
over
my
me.
YouTube millions. Is like I just do stereo chorus.
Just
ASMR,
3 hours.
Add 2 chords.
You joke, throw some ad roll in there, and you're killing
Some
it.
guy with a cucumber just chopping vegetables in the back,
Just scratching their nails on the microphone.
tying shoes. Or whatever. Yeah, man. Nice pedal, guys. Good job.
Yeah, Jackson Audio really made a slam dunk with this, and I think the proof is in the pudding when, yeah, you could take Mark and I's word for it, and I know that's a bit biased, seeing as you built it and we're selling it, but hopefully people get this in their hands, and it's one of those things they go, oh, they were totally 100% right, and maybe even tell us, like, you guys forgot to mention this is what I discovered, and I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to be able to be told, Ben, you forgot to mention this in video, I figured this out, I love this pedal, I want to buy more Jackson Audio / stuff from Sam Ash Music. So
There you go.
And speaking on that note, what's great is we're not just doing this for fun. We have these pedals. If you want this pedal, this isn't just a one-of-a-kind, only on this crate, no one's ever going to get it thing. We have these. You can talk to us and say, hey, I saw that amazing video with those 2 handsome gentlemen, and I want to buy this pedal right here and now, and we'll make it happen. Jackson Audio will make it happen. We'll figure it out because something tells me you're going to buy this, you're going to take it home, and you're going to love it forever. It might even be one of those kind of pedals that some people will have as a mainstay on their board because since chorus is coming back in such a big way,
Got to get in on the ground floor now.
Yeah.
Time to do it.
like everyone's gonna be like, yeah, I have that $5,000 Klon. This might be the new Klon. Who knows? This might be the chorus, the Klon of choruses, if you will.
Chloris.
The chorus.
Trademark.
Yeah. Honestly, that would be amazing if there was like a Klon clone mixed with a chorus called the chorus. That it almost sounds inappropriate, and I'm not going to get into why. So maybe it's not the best name in the world, but suffice to say, this is a great pedal. I had a lot of fun with it. Mark's clearly showing you could have a lot of fun with it, and you guys made something really special. This is a very cool
Thanks.
pedal.
Yeah, man.
And I sincerely appreciate the time you've taken to chat, talk about this pedal. But before we go, I just want to make note that if you like Mark, if you've never heard about Mark Lettieri, you can find him at marklettieri.com. If you don't know how to spell his last name, it's Lettieri.
There it is.
And if you still didn't get that, try your best in Google. I'm sure it'll autocorrect and it'll point you to his website. And you can find all of his socials. You can find all the work he's done. Find him on Spotify. We're Sam Ash Music. You can find us. Also, just type Sam Ash Music. Same thing. We're all over the web. And you can buy these at samash.com. We will have plenty in stock. And if we don't, we'll make sure to get more in stock ASAP for you. And that's the other thing I should mention. We are now a proud dealer of Jackson Audio products. So not only can you get the new wave, you can get all Jackson Audio products. So if you've ever heard about any of their pedals and you want to start playing them and owning them, give us a call. We'll help you out. But Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much
my
for your
pleasure.
playing and for creating this pedal with Jackson Audio. And if you don't mind, could you play us out?
Yeah, sure. We got this super mega wide sound.